What's up, everybody? This is your boy, Byron Scott. You're listening to another edition of Off the Dribble with me, Byron Scott. Today, my special guest is a very good friend of mine, a guy I've known since I was 21, so that makes it 39, almost 40 years. My second year was his first year with the Laker organization. This man is probably the most successful trainer and most well-known trainer in the world today. 32 years with the Laker organization. I mean, 1, 2, 3, about 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 champions, something like that. He's got a bunch of championship rings. He was in the era of Showtime with Magic Johnson, James Worthy, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, myself, Coop, AC, and all those guys. And then also with the other Laker team that was fabulous as well, which is Shaq and Kobe and those guys. I'm speaking about the one and only, my man, Gary Vitti. Gary Vitti, welcome to the show, my brother.
Thanks for having me, man.
Man, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.
Anything for you.
Hey, you know what? I appreciate that. But that's how we are with each other. You know, you're my man. Gary, let's just go all the way back to the beginning for a second, because the first time that we met, I was in my second year. You was a rookie. We met and we talked about getting together and working out and all that good stuff. And I remember this conversation that you had with me that Jerry West had with you when you were the first trainer to come in the NBA and you said, you need to get stronger, you need to lift weights. And I said, cool, let's do it. And then Jerry West told you were going to ruin me by having me lift weights, but we continued to do our thing. What made you know at that particular time, because that wasn't big in the NBA at all. Lifting weights was not big. Everybody thought it would get basketball players too bulky and they wouldn't be able to move. Why did you know it would work so well and we would be able to be successful and still play the game with being a lot stronger, but still having that flexibility that we wanted to keep?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was a rookie coming in with the Lakers team, but I wasn't a rookie, even in professional basketball. Prior to coming to the Lakers, I had about 5 years of experience at the Division I level and 2 years as an assistant with the Utah Jazz.
Mm-hmm.
So I had been around basketball. I went to graduate school at the University of Utah, and I had some really, really good training there. And so, these things are, they say that I was innovative. Not really. I just followed, what I was taught by some innovative people.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew it was going to work. And I had, Coach Riley behind me, because on our interview, those were the things that we talked about. You guys, unfortunately, in '84 had just been beaten again by the Celtics.
Yep.
And, the Eastern Conference is what I called goon ball. I mean, they were, they beat you up.
Yeah.
And I watched that and saw that happening. And, sure, we wanted to see you guys run like gazelles as you did, but you still had to mix it up back in the 80s. I mean, now you can't touch anybody on the court, but in those days, so, Pat was convinced that something different had to be brought to the game, as I did. And the two things that we felt like we could bring and control was some strength training and nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the two things I think that I brought that weren't really there before that. Now, we certainly don't want to throw Jerry West under the bus. I mean, he was brilliant.
Oh, no. I wasn't doing that. That was the logo. That was my basketball dad.
I understand.
It was just funny how that old style of brand are thinking at that particular time. But that's how they thought.
Yeah, and he doesn't think that way anymore.
No, now he knows. Yeah.
Yeah. The other factor specifically with you, okay, that I think you've never gotten credit for. I'm going to do it right now. I've done it before, even in my book, I give you credit for this. We had a 6'9" point guard.
Mm-hmm.
And it was impossible for him to guard the likes of, say, an Isaiah Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to guard the two guard, which is what you were,
mm-hmm.
And personally, I love big guards. There's no real place for you guys in the game anymore other than on the perimeter.
Right.
Okay? But that meant that you had to guard point guards. Okay, you were quick. I mean, you were fast, you were strong, but they were quicker.
Yeah, no shit.
Right? So
yes,
the equalizer had to be your strength. You were already strong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it was much, I believe, a matter of intimidation as it was you having the strength because you were already stronger than them.
Mm-hmm.
But when we cut you up the way we did, you were an imposing figure on the floor. And I'm pretty sure those guys came out and took a look at you and go, "This is going to be a tough night. I mean, this guy's going to beat me up."
And that's what I was trying to do too.
Yeah,
Beat the shit out of them.
You came out of Inglewood. You had that mentality, and you used it to your benefit, and it worked out. And your shooting percentage, if you look in the history books, um, proves that you can do strength training and flexibility training and agility training and all the things that we did and still be a successful shooter.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people didn't know that. And like you said, a lot of people frowned upon it, back in our day. But me as the guinea pig, because I was like, Gary, I want to keep doing it because I felt myself getting stronger. And I saw, in the mirror, I was like, man, that looks good, and I didn't feel like I was bulky or anything. So we kept on doing it for, about 10 years, and everybody started jumping on the bandwagon, as you were kind of the spearhead behind it. I had so many nicknames for you back in the day, as you remember. I used to call you little half pint Tom Selleck, because if people remember, you had the mustache, you had the fro, a curly afro, and you looked to me like Tom Selleck. And I also called you Inspector Clouseau, the Pink Panther guy that was always chasing him around. And we had such fun with each other. Tell the people a little bit about your relationship with the Showtime Lakers.
Well, it was interesting because I didn't meet any of you guys until the first night before training camp started. So in those days, your younger listeners may be interested to know that we didn't have a place to go to practice.
There was no training facilities.
Yeah, we were vagabonds.
Yeah,
so we would practice at Loyola one day, Pauley Pavilion at UCLA another day. We would go to Morningside High School, Inglewood High School, Inglewood Y,
San Bernard's, everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere, okay? Cement floors. I mean, we had 2 bags of balls with 6 balls in each bag and my kit. And we would show up and go at it, And so prior, I got here, let's say September 1. And, the first day of training camp is 28 days before the first game. So that brings you really into early October sometime. And then you open up, say, around November 1, somewhere around there, give or take a few days,
right,
depending on the year. So there was that month that I was here, but there wasn't anything organized. And so I had no office, really. I mean, there was a little place in the Forum, a little hole in the wall, and I would go there. And every once in a while, one of you guys would show up to talk to Jerry West or somebody and pick up your mail, fan mail or whatever. And I would meet people, but I never all together at one time.
Right.
And so finally, we get there to training camp and at College of the Desert.
Right. In Palm Springs.
And once again, I mean, when I was at University of Utah, we were really good. I mean, Tom Chambers, Denny Brains, Hayes Mannion. We had a good team. I mean, a bunch of guys went to the NBA, and I was working with the Jazz. Of course, they weren't very good, but it was still an NBA team. So I had been around really good basketball players, but not a collection like that.
Yeah.
And then when I saw you guys running the floor, circle the wagons,
Oh yeah.
3-line rush.
Yeah.
I watched 3 guys run the floor without the ball ever touching the floor. And when you would take off, the wings would go to the sidelines, practically run out of bounds. And then when you hit the hash mark, you'd start angling to give Magic, an angle to pass the ball. And it was like watching thoroughbreds. And I said, my gosh, this is going to be a lot of fun. And they were a little bit slow. You weren't at all. You were very, very friendly right from the beginning. I think you weren't on the hot seat, but you replaced Norm.
Yeah. I was
So
still
that-
on the hot seat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
Second year, I was still
they
on
were
the hot
kind of
seat.
sticking it to
Yeah,
you a little
yeah.
bit. And the year before, you lost to Boston, and I think everybody took a good look in the mirror and
Mm-hmm.
took responsibility. From an outsider looking in, it was collective, but I'm sure for most of you, it was introspective. And so I was kind of the new guy. You were not the new guy, but sort of still trying to break in. So it was obvious that you and I kind of connected.
Yeah.
And then little by little, because that was a tough group to come into. I mean,
yeah.
it wasn't coming from the Lakers going to the Jazz.
Right.
It was from the Jazz going to the Lakers.
Right.
So they were looking at me like what are you bringing?
Right.
To the you know what I mean?
Kind of like they looked at me when I first came in.
Yeah,
Same thing.
I think I can talk a blue streak. There's no doubt about that. But I think at that point in my career, maybe you can comment better, but my feeling was just keep your mouth shut and do your job and see what happens.
Yeah. You didn't say a whole lot your rookie year. You just did your job, like you said. But me and you talked a lot, because we got to know each other and we started to know each other even better. I remember, your first year, obviously my second year, we go into Boston, we beat their ass, we win the championship. And me and you hugging, you said, "This is my first year, we win championship. This shit's easy." What you guys talking about?
Yeah.
This shit's easy. My first year, we won a championship. What's the big deal?
Let's go do it again.
Let's do it again, But it's funny because you were in the era of the Showtime era, and then obviously with Phil Jackson and Kobe and Shaq in that era. And I'm not going to say so much about the differences between Showtime and that era, which was a great Laker, team as well. But just the difference in players then compared to players now. What do you see the big difference in it, Gary V?
Well, I think there's a huge difference. Let me add one more thing. There's a third era. Kobe and Powell. Okay,
that's true.
So,
That's true. You're right.
So,
You're right.
So if you really look back on my career, I came in, we went to the top, then we went to the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
then we went back to the top, then we went back to the bottom, then we went back to the top, and then I retired at the bottom. Okay?
Well, you started at the top, so
No, but trust me, I had a great run. There's a big difference in I think the way the players come up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the AAU when you played might have existed, but it wasn't what it is today.
Yeah.
Where 18-year-old kids are on private planes and we're wearing Rolex watches and things like that. And I'm not here to say that that's bad. I'm here to say it's different. Okay. I'll let you decide.
Yeah, okay. I'm not going to say it's bad or different.
Okay.
I mean, I'm going to say it's different. It's way different.
Okay.
Because you baby and cuddle these guys, and then they get to our level and they think everything should be handed to them.
I agree.
That's my opinion. But
I agree, but not everybody.
Okay. Not everybody.
Let's take
Majority, yeah.
Let's take a kid like Julius Randle.
That's true. I love Julius.
Definitely came up that way.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't even know if this is true. I even heard a story that when Julius decided to go to Kentucky, there was a press conference, and he showed up at the press conference with a Rolex on his wrist. And somebody had to say, "Hey, listen, man, you can't get in front of the camera with Rolex and think Kentucky's dirty." You know what I mean?
They probably also sent the private jet to get him to bring him up there for the press conference.
Maybe not. I can tell you, as the head athletic trainer, when we drafted Julius, he is a magnificent person.
Absolutely.
Hardworking, competitive, great guy, lives with a conscience. I mean, he is wonderful. So even though we could say things about the AAU, it also comes down to the individual, his family, his mom basically, was there and kind of kept, wraps on him. And so there's a mixture of talent there that comes in, and walks in the door and says, I've made it. You know, my thing after I was in the league for a while and felt like I had some credibility to say these things, when I would get a rookie, I would ask him that question. So do you think you've made it? And you know, because I was always interested in where they were coming from mentally. Because where I was sitting, you haven't made anything. Actually, this is the first day of your career.
It's just getting started.
And try to get into their head and tell them, you know, you already signed a contract. Okay, so you're really not playing for that contract. You think you are. Okay, you know, you signed a contract. Now you're actually playing for your next contract because you're going to get paid on this contract no matter what. Because you already signed it. They signed it too. Okay? You can be good, bad, or mediocre. You're going to get paid. But if you want to get paid again and again, then these are the things you have to do, because the job is not just playing in the games. Everybody wants to play in the game. That's the fun part. Okay? It's all the other stuff you got to do. You gotta, you know, work hard. You got to travel. You got to be away from your family. You know, you got to take care of your body. You got to come in the training room. You got to go in the weight room. You got to do this. You got to do that. All of that is part of your job, not just playing in the game. And so I think in the old days, guys came in knowing that because they didn't have the big contract. So they came in already knowing, I'm going to have to do all this stuff to stay in the league. You know, we even had a kid, great guy. Remember Adrian Branch?
Very well.
His nickname was Scratcher.
Scratcher.
Because he was scratching to stay in the league. Okay.
He was always on the borderline. You know.
And so I think to your point is we don't have as much of that mentality of trying to, you know, stay in the league and get that second contract. That's part A to the story. Part B, and this may even be a bigger part. When I broke in and when you broke in, there were 23 teams. There were 12 guys on a team. Now, you may assign a guy to a 10-day contract or something towards, you know, the end of his career, and in the season, you got a couple guys injured. But for the most part, there's 12 guys on the team. 23 teams.
That's it.
You do the math. Okay.
Not a whole lot of people.
That's it. Now you have 30 teams. You have 15 guys on the team. You have 450 players in the NBA. So how good and how competitive do you have to be one of 12 times 23, which comes out to about 175, something like that, 175 players. So if you're the 176th player, you're the MVP of the CBA. You're one of the top players in Europe. You can't get a job in the NBA. Now you got 400. You got 175 more jobs. It's just different. I mean, I'm not saying you don't have to be as good, but
you're saying you don't have to be as good. Yeah. You don't.
Yeah,
that's the truth.
Yeah, that's the truth. And coming from that era, you know, it's a little bit difficult when you're trying to steer a young person in the right direction. But they have everybody else in their life telling them how great they are. You know, and you are to a point. I mean, you're in the top 450 players in the world in the NBA. Okay. But I used to work with the top 175 guys. So you're good, you know, you really are good, but not that good. You know? And so, you know, you don't want to kill their confidence, but at the same time, you're always trying to figure out what makes them tick and get them to that next level. The third thing, when I came in, like, I didn't even know your agent. I'm trying to remember who it was. Okay. The only agent that I had ever met was Magic's agent before Lon Rosen, George Andrews. And I didn't know him. I just met him. Okay, he was around a little bit. So I didn't know any agents. By the time I retired, I knew all the agents, even agents that were agents but didn't have any clients on our team because I had had other guys, and they all had me on speed dial. Guy gets hurt in the game, and I decide to take him to the training room. Before I get to the training room, my cell phone's ringing. I haven't even looked at the guy yet. And so there's a big influence of agents that didn't exist back then. You could talk to a player. Now you got to talk to his agent. Okay. And an agent could be a real asset. It depends on the agent.
Right.
Some of them are, you got a guy that's kind of going off into left field. You're trying to reel him in. You call the agent, say, hey, listen, you got to talk to your guy.
Right.
He's not listening to me. Let's reel him back in. He's out every night. We're on the road. I see it. I've seen it before. He's good, but he needs to do everything right. And that, they can help you. That didn't exist. And so as the athletic trainer, it's very, very helpful when you have a general manager and a coach that are on the same page.
Right.
Because if they're not, you could be getting it in stereo. You could have the general manager talking to you about your coach. You can have your coach talking to you about your general manager.
Right.
Because there's some different philosophies in the league. Coach wants a certain player.
Right.
General manager doesn't want that player. Okay? Now, what does the general manager do? Because if he ends up firing the coach, now he's stuck with this player that the coach wanted. He didn't want to begin with.
Right.
So this, there's different philosophies of this. Now you go to a third entity, which are the players. It's really helpful if the best player on your team is a leader.
Yeah.
And he's a good guy.
Yeah.
It's very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if he's not, it can cause issues. And then the fourth thing that can pull you in another direction is the agent, as we said. So as a head athletic trainer, the coaches and the GM, they're all on the second floor. They come down for a couple of hours and they go back up there. My office is in the training room, which is next to the locker room.
Right.
Generally, the way you design these facilities is the training room's the hub. And then you go in one direction, you go in the locker room, players lounge, the wet area, all that. You go in the other direction and you go into the weight room. Okay. And then the third direction is the basketball court. Fourth direction is the exits, the parking lot.
Right.
Okay? And so you're at the center of it. And so you hear and see, kind of everything that's going on. And I was really fortunate with Jerry West and Mitch Kupchak, in that we had this sort of collective philosophy that I heard and saw everything. I was your eyes and ears down there. But it didn't necessarily mean I came up and told you everything that was going on.
Right.
And there were instances where I went upstairs and I would say something. They go, who? I said, I'm not telling you.
Yeah.
I'm just warning you in case this thing escalates. Okay. Doesn't come out of left field, but let it simmer. Let me see what's happening. Other times I would go up and say who, what, when, and where.
Right.
Other times I wouldn't say anything at all. Nothing.
Just kind of let it play out.
Let it play out.
Yeah.
Okay. And then from the player's standpoint, I look at him and say, listen, I tell him what I just told you. This is my philosophy and relationship with management. So you know how I operate. Now, as far as you and I are concerned as a player, I will never lie to you, but I also won't lie for you. So don't put me in a position where I got to go up and tell him who, what, when, and where. Just do the right thing. And if I see you not, I'll try to reel you in. And if I do, this conversation now should be telling you that it's in your best interest that I'm talking to you this way, that I'm trying to reel you in, and the best interest of the team.
Right.
And for me, it worked, I think, for the most part. I mean, I imagine there's some players out there that, probably it didn't work with. But I think collectively, went to the finals 12 times. We won at 8. That's not bad.
No, that's not a bad percentage at all, Gary V. I want to go back to, what you said about players, because this was my philosophy as well. When I got drafted, I always said to myself, getting drafted was the easy part.
Mhm.
Staying for 10, 12, 13 years, that's the hard part.
You got it.
What do you got to do to continue every year to get better
Mhm.
as a player so that you can continue to stay in this league? And I think, like you said, a lot of these guys, they don't have that mentality.
Right.
And being it, if, it's the era of, like you said, it's, family upbringing. We both on the same page with Julius. Julius was such a tremendous person,
Mhm.
and he wanted to be great.
That's good. You're right.
I would talk to him. I said, what do you want to do? How good can you be? And coach, I want to be great. I want to be great. I said, all right, well, you got to continue to work. And he was one of those kids that would do that.
Mhm.
Never give you no shit back. He just go out and he tried to play the game the right way and to the best of his ability. And I love that about Julius.
To your point, and I write this in the book about Magic, that we used to say he was like detergent because he came back new and improved every year.
He was like Tide.
Yeah. And what I see often, towards the end of my career, guy comes in the league, okay, and 5 years into the league, he's doing the same
shit.
stuff.
Yep.
So the first thing that teams are going to do is they're going to take away your best shit.
Mm-hmm.
So you better have something else to go to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, going back to, the people that are behind the scenes in the players sort of circle, do what got you here. It didn't get you here, but
it ain't gonna keep you.
Yeah. And it may keep you for a while if you're that good, okay, at what
3,
got you
4,
here. But
5 years.
eventually, especially when you get down to the money rounds, when you get into the playoffs, because you may get scouted and they know how to take away your stuff, but you're good enough. And it's February and it's the dog days. And that guy on the other team, he just don't want to work that hard on defense.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we're just going to play it out and see what happens. But now we get into the playoffs. Everything changes.
Because everybody got a chance now to hone in on what you do well and take that first and second option away.
How many players do you know have a great season and then all of a sudden they get to the playoffs and they get shut down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we've seen it many a time. Matter of fact, we did it to players. We got them shut down.
That's it. That's what you do. You take away their best stuff. I mean, in the old days, the formula was okay, keep the shooters off of their sweet spots, stop dribble penetration, and rebound the ball. Okay?
Let's get up and down the floor. Let's run.
Okay. And now the game has changed so much that, I don't think it's very difficult to scout a team. When I going back to training camp and watching Worthy on the wing and you on the other wing, like I said, practically, running to the baseline, practically running out of bounds. And then when you hit the hash mark, start coming towards the basket to create an angle for Magic, and he was probably going to look one way and pass the other. Okay. Now those guys do that. They go to the baseline, but when they get to the hash mark, they just keep going. And they go all the way to the corner.
Yeah, they're looking for threes.
Yeah, they're looking for threes.
Right.
And it's either going to be a layup or a 3-point shot, So, and that's what they work on.
Right.
And so that's all I kind of saw towards the end of my career was, everybody shooting threes. The low post game, with your back to the basket, great footwork, that pretty much doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Mid-range game, 17-foot jump shot and in. I don't see that. Probably the most important position on the floor is a stretch 4. You get a tall guy that can shoot a 3 and he pulls you out to the 3-point line and stretches the floor. Opens up I don't know. It's
a different game. There's no doubt about it. And you saw it, in 3 different eras, basically.
Yeah.
So it's a
Golden
different
era.
game. Yeah. I want to talk about somebody who we love very dearly. You spent more time with him than I did, but we both had a special relation with, and that's the late great Kobe Bryant. Tell us about some of your, because I remember, we're both there his rookie year. He shoots the 3 air balls in Utah, and I watched him in the locker room after the game, and all the reporters are talking to him, and the way he handled that situation. I knew then, I had already knew in practice, because we had practice and I did a thing for NBA Entertainment, and I said, mark my words, this guy is going to be unbelievable. And I knew after that interview of him shooting those 3 air balls, I said, yeah, he's going to be just fine. Tell the people some of your fondest memories of being with Showboat, as we called him back in the day, Kobe Bryant.
This one,
I do know.
I get sappy, man, and I'm Italian, so emotional guy to begin with, and then when you go there, this is really, really hard for me to talk about this kid, because most of my fondest memories really have nothing to do with basketball. If you're talking about Kobe Bryant, there was 2 different people. Okay, the person that the world saw on the basketball court, that was not Kobe Bryant.
Right.
That was
not
Black Mamba.
The one we knew. Yeah, not the one we knew.
Yeah, that's the Black Mamba.
Right.
That's his alter ego. That's his vicious, ruthless, competitive,
kill you at all costs. Yeah,
tough. And there's lots of things we could talk about with what made him great. Because I've often said that he was not the most physically talented guy. So how does he end up with 5 rings and more talented guys have none? And I could tell you, at least from my perspective, how that happened. Then there's this other guy, and his name was Kobe Bryant. Okay? And he was a completely different guy. And he's the guy that if my daughters came to practice, which they did on occasion when they were small, he would take one look at him and melt. My wife would take our goddaughter to a game and bring her down towards the bench, before the game started during warm-ups. He saw her, he'd stop and run over to the sideline and dote on her. A Make-A-Wish kid, the time that he would spend, it was never like, can't wait to get out of here.
Right.
Because those things aren't easy. I think he always made it look easy. He always wanted those people to feel that he cared about them, and he did. Once he walked into the locker room and the training room, the weight room, the basketball floor, that Kobe Bryant really didn't exist.
Right.
He transformed himself into the Black Mamba, and it was all business. And from every aspect of the game. So he was hard on his teammates and coaches. Okay. But that wasn't all. He was hard on everybody.
Yeah. He didn't pick one out of the other.
No, it was
he gave it to everybody,
top to bottom.
He gave
all
it to
boys,
everybody.
Me included. It wasn't. There were times when him and I were like,
because the Italian came out of you, because you never backed down either. So
you can't really.
Right.
I mean,
well, not with him, because if you back down with him, first of all, then he would disrespect. He wouldn't respect you.
Right.
If you stood up to him, he had more respect for you. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the stuff that he did was to test you as a person and see if you were going to be in awe or in fear of him. And if you showed that, then he was done with you.
Listen, man, I don't like using analogies about war, like the words battle, foxhole, war,
warriors,
going, playing a game and calling it a battle or a war, because there's guys that actually went to war and battle, you know,
absolutely,
and I don't. It's not the same,
absolutely.
Okay? But just for this moment, for lack of a better way to describe this. If I was in a foxhole and I looked to my left and I saw him, and I looked to my right and I saw you, I knew I was going to be okay. Now, if you guys look to your left to right, I don't know how you would have felt about me, right? But I knew that I was good, you know. And there was other guys in that category too, but not everybody.
Yeah.
You know. But he was that guy, and that's what he expected from everybody. And as a result, there's not a few, most.
Yeah.
Most players didn't want to play with him.
Yeah.
You know, and I would have this conversation with them, especially when, you know, like tampering became a thing. Because like when I came in the league, you never really heard about tampering.
Right.
But then later, you know,
Right.
it became a big thing.
Right.
And so, you know, anybody that was in the organization, we used to get memos from the legal department. Don't talk about this person or that person. Don't say anything. Doesn't mean you can't as a player.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You know, so I say, Kobe, you know, you got to go talk to guys that you think might want to play with you and get them to come here. You know, I don't think that ever occurred to him. Like you know, this was the Lakers. Everybody wants to come and play here. And that was true for a while.
For a while, yeah.
Yeah. And then it changed.
Yeah.
You know, it changed. The money helped change it, you know, because guys are making so much money, they could go play someplace else, but buy a home here and live here.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
Well, that wasn't the case
Right.
before. Like, you know, you basically had to live where you played because
Yeah.
there was so much money. You know? So, you know, with him, it wasn't all fun and games, but in the end, there was a lot of love and mutual respect, especially at the end of his career, when he realized there was no way that we were going to be able to win with what we had.
Right.
And he started having a good time.
Yeah, he accepted it.
And he was literally, you know, happy. And when my dad passed away, he called me. And I'll let you listen to this because he left me a voice.
Okay.
And
you know how much I love Mr. Vitti. That was my Italian dad right there. So
you knew my pops. I mean, before I got the job with the Lakers, he didn't know basketball from a shovel. Okay, and all of a sudden he became an expert.
Yeah.
You know, call me up and tell me. You know, I knew it wrong. Yeah, I'll tell Pat. Okay, I'll tell Jerry West. Sure.
He was the best though, boy. He was the best. He really was.
But Kobe, you know, speaking Italian, and you know, he'd see my dad, and they'd, you know, speak Italian to each other for a while. And you know, he called me, and you could tell that he kind of felt my pain. He left me this message, and if people could hear that message, they would understand the difference between Kobe Bryant and Black Mamba.
Yeah, I tell you, his last year. Our last 2 years, all three of us, really, you know, at the same time, you know, him retiring, you retiring. I wasn't retiring. I just got fired. So
you got retired.
Yeah, I got retired. Yeah, I got retired
unfairly.
Yeah, and you know, it's crazy because I remember, because I know that other side of him as well. You know, I know the Kobe Bryant that a lot of people don't know, and I've seen him with kids. And I remember a friend of mine at the Bellagio, who's one of the big wigs at the Bellagio, was coming in town with some people. And I went and had dinner with him that night. And he said, is there any chance that, I can't remember the guy's name, his son can meet Kobe after a game? And I said, you know what, Bob, let me call you. I'll call you because let me talk to KB first. You know, I said, I don't just bring people in, you know, like that. So I talked to Kobe. I said, after the game, a friend of mine that works with the Bellagio, and you know, KB, oh, I love that hotel. And I said, he wants to bring his boss's son in to meet you. Is that okay? Yeah. So after the game, I bring him in my office. I bring Kobe back. And he stayed there for 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And like you said, and I'm trying to leave,
Yeah.
you know,
But he did that for you.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
for the
But
Bellagio guy. He did
no,
that for
exactly.
you.
Exactly. And I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like you said, when the kid came in and he started talking to the kid and he giving the kid high fives, and the kid is in awe, obviously,
Mhm.
and his dad is like, oh my God, and I'm like, you guys want to take pictures? So they took pictures, Cole took pictures, arm around him and everything. And then basically grabbed the kid and just had a conversation with him, and I'm like, can we,
Yeah.
I gotta go, we got to get out of here and blah, blah, blah. I want you to get out of here. And he stayed there for like 10, 15 minutes and talked to the kid. That's the Kobe Bryant that people should have saw more of.
Yeah.
I
think
wish they
did
would
towards
have.
the
Yeah, towards
end,
it, but I wish they
but
would have saw
yeah.
a lot more of
Yeah.
that about KB.
There was a time when we, after we built the practice site in El Segundo, and we hadn't won a championship yet with him. So it was about 4 years. I think came in '96, and we won our first with him in 2000. So somewhere in those 4 years. To be honest with you, I didn't see what everybody else saw. He was a 17-year-old kid. At that point, he was the youngest player ever to be drafted in the NBA. There were other high school guys, but
Right.
nobody that young.
Right.
And then after him, we drafted Andrew Bynum at 17, even a younger 17
Right.
than Kobe. And so then they changed the rule. So if nothing else, I'll go down in infamy as having the two youngest players ever to be drafted in the NBA. So he was a 17-year-old kid. I didn't look at him as really being able to help us yet.
Right.
It's going to be 4 years before he was going to really become a player. But he came in already thinking he was a player, and I wasn't going to fight with the guy. Okay, think whatever you want. So, great. It's good you have confidence.
Right.
Go for it. And sort of kind of in the background watching his development. And then, I don't know, we're walking through the gym. I don't know if he was in cranky or in a bad mood or something. And he said something. I was like, okay, right. He turned around, he looked at me, and he said, you'll see. You'll see when I put 5 banners up on that wall. We already had a bunch of banners up on the wall, right? And I got to tell you the truth. I was like, yeah, sure. If you get 1, 5, you better get some help too.
Right.
You want 1. And he did it. He did it. And he had help. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you can't do it alone.
No, not in this sport. This is not the sport to do it alone.
Can't do it alone. But I tell you this: the guys that helped him, they wouldn't have won without him.
Yeah.
So it was a combo of things. I mean, I look at our team before Phil came in 2000. We actually had more talent before, and we couldn't win. And then somehow, Phil got everybody on the same page. I mean, he came in with the sort of instant credibility. You didn't have to earn it and all that.
Well, he just had MJ and Scottie Pippen just won championships in Chicago.
6 rings.
So he didn't really have to come in and demand respect.
Right.
He was going to get that as soon as he stepped on the court.
The other thing he had a 5-year, $12 million contract.
Well, that'll do it too.
Okay. When an owner gives a coach $60 million,
yeah,
he's telling everybody who wears the daddy pants. Okay. And players that maybe had an attitude that I'm going to get this coach fired. Well, maybe not.
Right.
You might get yourself traded.
You're gonna go probably before he do.
Yeah.
So that was a big statement.
Sure. Yeah. He came in with instant credibility. I mean, he commanded it, and that certainly helped. He got everybody on the same page. Put structure in with the triangle.
Right.
I mean, there's other things, but when you add it all together, it worked.
Yeah. I want you to tell me about the incident, and you once told me a long time ago that my threshold for pain was one of the highest you had ever seen among all the players that you had. And then you said, but Kobe is right up there with you. And then he breaks his finger in a game, and you can see he's in agony.
Right.
And he goes over to you, and he's in pain, and you know, being cool, Gary V, like you always are, you kind of back in, and the man went back in to play the game. Kind of tell us about that whole incident, because I remember it. I was like,
Yeah.
he just broke his finger. You
Yeah.
could just see it. So
Yeah.
tell us about that.
Yeah. So he dislocated his finger, and you know, there's degrees of dislocation. I mean, you can
Right.
just kind of partially dislocate it, or you can really dislocate it. So it's, you know, it's way out there.
Mhm.
And then, you know, the way your body works is that muscles turn into tendon, and then the tendon attaches to the bone. So the way a muscle attaches to the bone is through tendon. So once you dislocate, the muscle kind of spasms and contracts and yanks on the tendon, and then pulls the bone out of place and holds it out of place. Okay. And it can be really, really difficult, depending on the dislocation, to get that back in.
Mhm.
That particular dislocation was extremely difficult. Okay. It was really, really dislocated, and it was a new dislocation. So, which means is once you dislocate a joint, you probably have about a 50% chance of dislocating it again, because you've torn all the tissue, soft tissue around it
Right.
that
Right.
hold those bones in place.
Okay.
This was brand new. Spasm, that thing was in there, and it took a lot. If you look at my face,
Oh,
I'm
you were.
gritting my teeth, pulling on that thing, and finally it goes back into place. And then as soon as it goes in, like any dislocation, it's immediate relief. Now, what I wanted to do is then stabilize it, like with some tape and
Yeah.
maybe even a dorsal splint or something. But he was gone. Like I patted him on the head, like, okay, it's going to be
Yeah.
okay. Next thing I know, he was gone. You know, and he's telling whoever was on the other team, it's nothing, it's okay. Well, it wasn't. It was something. It wasn't nothing. Okay, but that in and of itself showed the toughness and the tenacity of Kobe Bryant and the will. Okay? But in my opinion, the greater story is the Achilles tendon.
Yeah.
rupture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he ruptures his Achilles tendon right in front of the Warriors bench.
Mhm.
You know, if you're me, you know, anyone that's trained, you don't know for sure that that's it, but sure does kind of look like it, you know? And so you go out there, and the most telltale sign of an Achilles tendon rupture is when an athlete says, it felt like somebody kicked me in the
yeah.
back of my leg. As soon as you hear that,
You know it's torn.
you know it's Achilles, right? Which is what he said. And I said, okay. And then he says to me, so I reach back there and try to pull it back down. All right. Which
Okay, that's gonna be a
other-
hell of a trick,
I've had
though.
a bunch of athletes, you know, since the beginning of my career, rupture Achilles. No one's ever said that to me. And I don't even know what he was thinking, because it's not like it rolls up your leg.
Right,
Okay. It's
right,
still there.
right.
I mean, there's other, you know. So I didn't, you know, I said, it doesn't really work that way. He goes, yeah, I know. He goes, you know, I've been trying to walk on my heel to see if I could run on my heel and see if I could play that way. I said, that it don't work that way either. He goes, well, can we go in the back and maybe you could tape it up? I could finish the game. I said, it doesn't work that way either. I said, but here's what I'll let you do. So you got fouled. So there's 2 free throws coming. If you don't shoot them, then Mark Jackson is going to pick somebody on our bench, worst free throw shooter, to come out and shoot these free throws. And we're trying to make the playoffs. So we're still trying to win the game.
Right.
You know, I mean, feel for the kid, but we're still have a game, you know, playing. Okay. I said, I'll let you, you know, shoot the free throws. He's going to tear the other one standing there. I mean, he's already torn it. So I said, I'll let you shoot the free throws. I said, I'm going to tell coach, I'm going to tell Mark Jackson, I'm going to tell the official. After the second free throw, make or miss, we're going to foul, and then we'll get you out of the game, and we'll bring you back, and then we'll take another look. I said, but it's up to you if you want to shoot. I'm shooting them. Okay. What I didn't anticipate, because we were sort of at the scorer's table talking about this, about halfway between both benches. Before I knew it, he was walking towards our bench, towards you, okay, to discuss whatever it is you guys were going to discuss in the huddle. Okay? Well, he didn't need to make that walk, but he did, which means he had to walk all the way back.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's walking almost the length of the court, at least 2/3 of the court on a ruptured Achilles, then walking back to shoot the free throws.
With no assistance either. Nobody helping him.
None. Then walked all the way back to the training room. And I've talked to him to this day, pretty much it was a shot at Paul Pierce. When we played,
he walked
Celtics
off, yeah, and was he wheelchaired
he took
off?
A wheelchair off the court, and then came back, and kicked our tails the rest of the game. Okay? So that was the message that he was sending to everybody in the league, and it was sent loud and clear. Once we got into the training room, like if you saw that, he had no emotion.
Yeah.
Once he got in, then it all came.
He let it out.
I mean, there were Gatorade bottles flying. People were ducking. I mean, he tore the place up. Very emotional. Eventually, he calmed down a little bit. We had a bunch of doctors in there and, discussing what the steps were. And not too long after we arrived in that training room, he had already decided that he wanted surgery the next morning to start his road back. Now,
you can't do that though, right?
Well,
you gotta let
we did it, but most doctors don't want to do that because there's a lot of bleeding going on in there. They want it to calm down a little bit, but he was adamant. I want this done, right? And he's a tough guy to argue. He would have went and found somebody,
right?
He would have found somebody with a scalpel, and then the end of that story is that security brought Vanessa and the girls. So my office was in the back of the training room, and it had a separate doorway that went into the hallway, separate entrance. And I got word that Vanessa and the girls were back there and wanted to come in the training room. And so I went over to Kobe and I said, okay, look, Vanessa and the girls are here. Okay. Are you ready for them? Because he was
still emotional, probably.
All of a sudden, just like that, turned it off, the emotions, and those girls walked in, and he was the Rock of Gibraltar.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's Kobe. Listen, Gary Vitti and I could stay here all day and talk about Kobe and some of the other, Lakers stories that we have. But we're going to stop it right here because we're going to both end up crying if we keep talking about this. We're going to dedicate this, this episode to the late, great Kobe Bryant and the Bryant family, Vanessa and the girls. Again, my guest, Gary Vitti, my main man, my brother. If we in a foxhole together, I know you got my back like I got yours, just like you said. You know that for sure. But this is Off the Dribble with Byron Scott. We'll see you next time.